Hi, so I'm here to talk a bit about Tea2Go, which is a project that I've been heavily involved in and started up. And this project all started in 2020, late 2022, and it all was about jacket potatoes. I'd read an article about how people were turning down baking potatoes from food banks. And it wasn't because they didn't want to eat them, it was because they couldn't afford the energy to cook them. And I think that detail about hunger being this very physical, very specific idea, that it wasn't just about the cost of food, it's a bigger problem than that, really lodged deeply with me. And it was something that I really felt called to do something about. So just a little bit of context of Acomb. So Acomb is an area in the west of York. It's very mixed community. We've got lots of families. There's quite a lot of movement, people coming into and out of the area. And there's really small pockets of deep deprivation. So the three areas, the pink-bounded one at the top, there's a purple one and a blue one, are all in the bottom 20% of deprivation nationally. But the thing that's very specific about this area, and it's the same in a number of cities I know, is that there's affluence right next to them. That area at the top, that pink area, is in the bottom 20%. The area all around it is in the top 10. So it's not just that there's deprivation. That deprivation is felt very acutely because of this affluence that's alongside it and the high cost of living in an area that when you zoom out looks quite affluent. And we knew about this as a church because of the listening we were doing, listening through conversations with the local food bank and volunteers there who are members of our church and not, talking to volunteers and librarians, other churches. We're blessed in York to have a system of local area coordinators that are council employees supporting people in communities. So we had really good conversations with them about what was needed. And there was this sort of, and the picture emerged of people just about managing, rising costs pushing people from just about managing to just about not managing, and loneliness layered on top that was affecting everybody. So there was some warm spaces funding. This was now going in, it was the winter of 22-23 that we could access, and some other organizations had started doing things, but it was all during the day. There was nothing that was focusing on people who were working but struggling, and nothing that provided a proper meal. So that was the sort of problem and where we felt called. And the question that kept surfacing was, what would it look like to offer something nourishing? No forms, no referrals, no strings. Just God's love to our community who are struggling. And this came through this system of prayer, this listening, which is some of the major principles of faith rooted community organizing. But we just felt that we needed to do something and get going. Start small, be imperfect, and see what happened. So we started up Tea2Go in early 2023, and it's been going ever since. So the our solution to the problem was this simple takeaway hot meal, no questions, with the aims of helping with the cost of living, combating loneliness, and offer a gift of God's love to people with no strings attached. So we gathered together volunteers from our church, the other local churches, and I made a really conscious decision to put the Acomb Churches Together logo on it to run it as a project that wasn't just our church solo. The Kairos movement also supported us, and we wanted to make sure that we had maximum volunteer base and community backing. But I also picked up volunteers from social media and the school run and the local social prescribing service. And we started. And the system is simple. Customers text us their order. We cook one main meal, no waste, cook the number of portions we need. And then the customers arrive to collect. They get a cuppa, a biscuit, a chat. They take their food away to enjoy at home. And we strive to have a well-made, nourishing meal with 2 vegetables to go into hungry bellies. And what was surprising was what actually happened around the food. It was the community that began to form, and people lingered, and we had conversations, and roles blurred in a really beautiful way. One man who came for food was Mikey. So he first came as a guest, and is this community guy struggling a bit with his mental health, looking for a chance to chat. And he's become a key part of the team. And I asked him if I could just get him to say a few things, because I don't want to speak on his behalf. So hopefully we're going to hear from Mikey. I'm afraid we're not going to hear from Mikey.
Cooking.
There we go. Should we just go back? Thank you,
volunteers. I seem to, I don't know, take a leading role.
Let's just go back and hear from him again.
My name's Michael McCaughey, and I come and volunteer to do the cooking and help with other volunteers. I seem to, I don't know, take a leading role, and it gives me a lot of good self-esteem.
Why do you like volunteering here, Mikey?
Because you get to meet different people from different walks of life, and I always try and get on with as many people as I can. I believe that everybody's got something to share, something to bring to the table. It just helps me with my mental health as well. It's a good.
Yeah. And have you made friends here?
Yeah, that's okay. You're a friend. I'd say yeah. It's like when I go up on the estate, everybody starts saying, "Oh, are you cooking tonight, Mikey? Are you cooking this? Are you cooking that?" And it's good, to get, to give something back to the community, rather than, I use food banks as well, but it's just giving something back.
And you think this makes a difference to people's lives?
Definitely, yeah.
Because of the food, or because of
both, I think, yeah. Because of the food, and because it's it's a sociable place for people to come and talk, even if you have a cup of tea or something like that. Yeah.
So it's Mikey's just such a blessing to us, and I know that it makes a real difference for him in his community to feel, that he is part and he's solving a problem and supporting his own community. We've given him the space to be able to do that, but he is supporting his own community. And faith in Tea2Go doesn't really look like we might expect it. We don't have traditions and long times of prayer or Bible readings, but we've got this community and this hospitality and this belonging. I think the key thing is we didn't bring God to this community that was hungry and needed something to eat. God was already there. We just joined the dots and helped facilitate. And that's what faith-rooted community organising can look like on the ground, this sort of listening and working alongside. It is important to say this whole thing isn't easy, and we struggle with finances and volunteer capacity and the scale of need. We started off with a very strict list that we couldn't do more than 40 meals, and we do 48 every week now, and are frantically trying to work out how we can do more. There's also a tension that we feel, because we're not solving the root cause of poverty. We're not transitioning people out of poverty, and it doesn't fix the system. But also on a Thursday evening, people eat, and people are seen, and they belong, and that does matter. So I suppose faithfulness is about sitting with that tension and being okay with it and not walking away from it. So that's a justice-seeking project from my context, and that's a response to specific injustice here in Acomb. But Steve has got a completely different response to a completely different problem.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you, Fran. Good morning, to everybody. It was a pleasure to be able to speak about this, because I have to say some of what I'm going to say this morning is in a sense before my time, because I joined around about just after September in 2020. But this is a project that was birthed some time ago, and with this, we call it Reuniform. There are other similar projects across the country. What we aim to try and do is provide free uniform, school uniform, which is incredibly expensive. Certainly can be for parents who are actually sometimes even new to the country, but also for parents who are struggling, especially when you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 and upwards siblings. We deal with the issue that a lot of parents have when their children are growing fairly rapidly, that you buy all of the school uniform in September, and by Christmas they've grown half a foot. Well, I don't know the medical facts about that, but all of these different factors come into play, and so we aim to reach out into the community, a very similar thing, to reach out into the community with something that is tangible, something that is useful, but also something that community can then feed back into the system. Because the uniform that we have, I feel quite passionate about this really, is not lost property. It's clean, washed, ready to go, no scuffs. It's all what a parent would buy for their child. And what often happens is that when that school uniform, yes, perhaps by some minor miracle, is still workable later on after that child has used it, it can then be put back into the system and used again. We avoid things like landfill. Especially for logoed, it's my accent coming from logo, we call it, logoed uniform, that can end up in landfill. And we try to put it back through into the system to be as environment wary as we possibly can. The actual thing itself began with Emma Hardy, who is an MP for our area in Hull, and I'd like to just start with another video. Some of you might recognise this Peter Levy from Look North, and this was something that happened a couple of years ago, just to advertise, but also to accentuate the need for this particular project. So just a minute and a half or so of Look North.
Haven't even broken up for the summer holidays yet, but already parents are working out the cost of buying their new uniforms ready for the next term. To help those who are struggling to afford them, a Hull opposition councillor is calling for a uniform grant to be introduced in the city. Jessica Raspin says that some parents may have to choose between paying the bills or buying school uniform this summer. We'll hear from the council leader in a moment, but first Philip Norton has this report.
I was a teacher in East Hull, so I know how difficult it is, and it's just got worse instead of better.
Sue's always welcomed school uniform. As a teacher, it was a school tie. But she began helping out at this uniform scheme a few years ago after seeing the financial strain modern uniform puts on parents.
I think academisation did a lot. They've all gone big uniform, and it has to be logo to show off the school. There's no real need for that, and that makes stuff twice as expensive.
Reuniform has been running in Hull for 4 years now. When children outgrow uniform, parents can donate it for others to use.
It's not just the different schools, but also the different sizes that we have to deal with, right the way up through to sort of adult sizes from ages of 3 to 4. So we cater for a lot of different scenarios for parents.
The project says the cost of living crisis has doubled demand for donated uniform this year.
People are telling us that they're having sleepless nights. They don't know how they're going to afford school uniform, with bills and everything else going up like that. You know, it's a godsend that they've got this facility that they can use.
Okay, so this was something that started, as it said, 4 years ago, which is about 5 approaching 6 years ago now. And yes, there was a lot to do with cost of uniform, and this is something that we wanted to address. And we were dealing with things like, I don't know if you've experienced this as well with some of your children or grandchildren, but you know, having to have an ironed-on logo on your trousers. And it was things like that were upping the costs for parents, and you get 2 pairs of trousers if you can. Shirts become grey before you know. All of these different things. So we don't just deal with logoed uniform, we also deal with a lot of generic uniform, particularly for the junior schools. But just to go back briefly, a little history. Behind there, you'll see that we cover the postcode area of Hull and its general area. So it's not just the city of Hull, it's the surrounding area as well, which, as you can see, touches the borders of the York postcode areas, quite a distance to cover. It was started in July 2019. One of our founders, Susie Steele, who is also a lay worker in the Methodist Church currently, she received a phone call from Emma Hardy, the MP for that area, and Emma said, "I've had an idea." And maybe, I don't know, if you get a phone call from a politician and they say that, you start to get very wary indeed. Are we going to be following some kind of political sort of move forward? Am I able to follow this? This was a brilliant idea. And Susie Steele was a mission enabler at the time, and Reuniform was born. Facebook page was set up. It seems you've got to do that nowadays for many reasons. And then what followed was a lot of intense activity. Schools were informed, there was lots of publicity. All of this about starting to get people to collect used but extremely good quality uniform. Now, I will say, as of now, we get things coming into us that are still on the racks, if you like. We get donations from various places, which we'll see very soon. But we started to establish collection points outside Methodist churches, other places. All of this was a hive of activity. Parents were invited to come and collect. And of course, the running theme, no charge for any of the uniform. You can imagine the amount of work that goes on behind the scenes, which we'll see. Overall, in the beginning, it sounds almost biblical, that, doesn't it? In the beginning, we were helped by over 35 volunteers. Slightly less now, but still working very strong. At these initial events, over 500 children received free school uniform. That included the logoed stuff, the generic stuff as well, all very good quality. Well, continuing that theme of a little history, one of the things that was happening as part of that activity was that Reuniform, because it had such a good network by this time, they were giving out handmade face masks during the COVID-19 pandemic. You see a picture of Susie there in Tesco's as well, but also an opportunity to advertise what we were doing. One of the things I hasten to add is that we did get 1 or 2 comments about when we did at one point, we used to actually go house to house to deliver these things, to deliver the uniform orders that they were called. And we were quick to say, actually, these are not orders because we're not Amazon. We are volunteers. They are requests, and we do what we can do with the uniform that we have in stock. Today, as you see, today we are still going very strongly, and we shifted to online ordering, so our principal source of orders is by Facebook. We have a Facebook page, and I started around about the time when this was just beginning. So I was coming into something that was already well established. You know, my eyesight's not as good as it used to be, but we've got I think I can see we've got donations from MS3, Hull Tigers, the football team, KCOM. They would actually bring in donations of uniform bags. We give out drinks bottles, all of these different things. Very helpful from our sponsors, from different donations. We've got donations from churches together. Sometimes it's money, sometimes it's actual things that we can give out. Anthony Gold thought we had this, he was closing down. This is a gentleman who was many decades in Hull as a businessman selling shoes, and we just got this influx of shoes. We deal with children from 3 years old, sometimes the size, all from 2 years old, right the way up to adult sizes. And we just had this influx of brand new shoes, which he gave to us as his business was closing down. So there's these links with communities as well, which are very strong. And Tesco's, of course, lots of links with them. They gave us lots of bags recently. So parents asked for PE kits and backpacks and water bottles and lunch boxes and all of these things. There's a huge variety of different things that we do. So I wanted to put this in. Now, it's very interesting. Back in the day when we used to go out delivering to households, when I started this job as a local lay pastor, it was invaluable because I didn't know Hull very well. So buzzing around in the car was a wonderful opportunity to cut my teeth. It was very, very funny, the looks that you got when you were running around streets with what looks to be like clinical waste bags, bright yellow coloured bags, and we were delivering them to people's doorsteps. For lots of different reasons, we changed to them actually coming to us to pick items up, so we still do the orders. And then, you know, we've got local media interest as well from the radio as well. And it's an ongoing project. We get the clothes in from the supermarkets, wherever. We tidy them up. You can imagine what it's like. We use the whole of Hull Trinity Church all the way along this massive church with the balconies, and we separate the clothes by age, but also school and sizes. All of this into good order so we can distribute it quickly. Just a few final pictures. This was a relatively recent picture where we were outside. So we have the odd summer event as well, where we go outside, advertise what we do to parents. We see a lot of parents coming in, migrants from other countries, and they land in the summer sometimes, and they struggle to find school uniform. We can immediately help with that issue for them. And it's just a wonderful opportunity to reach out into the community and for volunteers from the community to help as well. I guess finally, we've got a couple of examples of posters that go out into the community where we ask for people's school uniforms. One last picture, really. That's just one very small segment of the big round balcony where we store the clothes, where we store the uniforms, and that's a part of our team just there. So thank you for listening. I will say as well, just one other thing, and as far as social justice is concerned, it's as well as the cost for parents. One of the big things that we advertise is the fact that we are recycling. And it's proper recycling in the sense that we're not giving it away to be reconstituted like a plastic or paper. It's being put back into the system almost immediately, and it's all clean as well. So we do our very best from this point. So this slide is questions. That's for both of us. So we offer, the reason we've asked you to sit down here is to take any questions. We will do our best to field those. So please, it's open to you. If you have any questions, do ask. Yes.
Thanks very much, both of you.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks very much, both of you. Question for both of you. Has there been any negative pushback in the churches of which you are members or where you serve? And if so, how has that carried on or been dealt with? Or
Yeah, that's a good one. We're really lucky in Acomb that basically Acomb Church let me do what I want. They're very good at that. And so there hasn't actually, but I think with Tea2Go, I was acutely aware that there was a call to do something, but that there wasn't the volunteers within the church. So when I started the project, I made it very clear that we were going to recruit volunteers outside, and I've got a volunteer base of maybe 15, and 3 of them worship at the Methodist Church. So I have in the past sent out emails to the other churches as part of Acomb Churches Together, and from that we've had a number of people from the Catholics, from the local evangelical church, and the founding lot actually were a load of the Quakers who really wanted to do something but didn't have the capacity. We have the capacity in our building. So that really helped. The other thing is that when I look at the overall finances for the project as a whole, there is a line in there for room hire. And so the Acomb Methodist Church only charge costs, so it's 50% room rate, but I was very keen that we covered the cost of using the electricity for the oven and did something back from the fact that there was a room being lost for rental. So because of that, I knew that the project would be able to continue long term. So no, it's been really positive amongst the community and the congregation. We have a couple of other things that we do as a church that encourage people to come into the building, and we're a very busy church with people coming in. So I think it's part of the sort of church's overall mission to be an open building. So very lucky, but also specifically thought about that advance, I suppose, and considered that, how that was going to happen. What about you?
Thank you. Yes, so we're also very lucky. I mean, the church that we have, I would say, is a great, huge building that's actually quite round. So you saw a picture just now. The whole of that entire balcony is used from the ages of 3 right the way up to about 12 years old. Then we have another room. Back when it was started, I mean, I do, in terms of difficulty from the church itself, not so much difficulty because from our point of view, we could see their point of view as well. Because back in the day, you know, we were experiencing mountains of school uniform that a few of us volunteers had to basically go all the way through and check through and everything else. So actually the use of space, but occasionally what happens in the church as well is that we do get sort of classical music concerts and that kind of thing. So we have to make sure it's tidy. But the church are amazing. They allow us to keep that there. And actually for the congregation to see that is almost like a 3D picture painting, really, of the outreach that their church does, that we do on behalf of that particular church. So, generally speaking, apart from some practical things, quite positive. Yeah. Thank you.
Hello. You implied both projects that you need the people you're trying to help to communicate with you electronically. Is that what actually is needed?
So for Tea2Go, I was really keen that it would be easy for everybody, and so we use text messaging as the communication form. I've then had some people say, can we use WhatsApp, because that's more convenient for them. So I have a couple of people on WhatsApp. I have a specific telephone that's not mine. I have a burner phone, basically. I have too many phones. So that all of the text messages come through to that phone and go away. We have a few people that don't contact us weekly, but I know they're going to come in. And they're people who are living very much on the edge and are really struggling and have very chaotic lives. So there's always a couple of people that are on the list because I know they're coming. And sometimes they don't, and it's quite frustrating, especially if another we've got some families who are ordering 6 and 8 meals. If they don't turn up for whatever reason, it is frustrating. But there's the orchestra who come in after us normally get blessed with sausage and mash. But it is, that's difficult, and I have to hold quite a firm line with some people and say, you haven't shown up 2 times without a reason. You're on your final warning, and I have, unfortunately, had to say to people, there's too much need for me to turn someone else away. So I think it's manageable. I advertise for volunteers online and in newsletters and letters out to the church, so it's a bit of a mix for me. How do you find electronic? Because your requests, are coming in electronically.
That's generally speaking, we found just purely with experience that the vast majority of people will find it easier to communicate in such a way. We also, in some ways, there are many times when we've put huge bags of clothes together for people to come and pick up where those bags are just simply not picked up, But that really is as an aside. I think it's just one of those things where nowadays it is the huge majority of people, but people can get in touch with us by word of mouth typically. I think again, even email, etc. But communicating with the church itself, we put the posters around. There are other ways in which people can communicate with us, but I would say we're sticking to the principal way of requesting. Thank you, Fran. The principal way of requesting is online. It is cheap. It is quicker, should I say? It is. It's more efficient. And I think, generally speaking, if people don't get access to online, they know somebody who does. So we find that works. I appreciate the question, though, because we know not everybody's online, but we find that we do pretty much reach everybody. We haven't had any specific complaints in that direction. Thank you for your question. Yes, thank you.
Thanks. Sorry, I've got 2 questions. 48 meals, that's a lot of food. Steve's already mentioned about how they've built up networks for collecting uniform and local businesses, etc. How do you go about sourcing your food to make sure that the project is sustainable? And then my second question is more about regulations. You're cooking and serving food to people, so health and safety, food hygiene, also data protection and things like that. What's the regulatory burden that you've also got to do, as well as everything else, to be able to support that ongoing brilliant project?
Yeah, great question, because that's the boring bit, right? Sorry, but it is. So when we originally set up, the aim was to use waste food. Around that time, there was a lot of demand for waste food. And in order to get hold of it, it's hard work. You need volunteers to pick it up. It's hard work. So we actually we purchased the food immediately before cooking it. And so we have a £55 a week budget to go to the supermarket and buy it. And we've got some funding, which came through a grant through the Trussell Trust Food Bank. They had some surplus funds. So we have funding for all the food costs for 3 years, which puts us in a really great place and means that the remainder of fundraising is achievable. So we are buying food. We sometimes get the council quite often has the Holiday Activities Fund, which is council money specifically for feeding families. And sometimes at the end of the holidays, I get a phone call and say, I've got a load of cash left. And I'm like, quick, get yourself to Booker's. I'll have some tinned tomatoes and kidney beans. No, not kidney beans. They hate kidney beans. I don't know. Anyway, that's a whole other thing. But we bulk buy up those sorts of things that can store. It's also a question of storage in the church and fridge storage in particular, because there is regulations around that. So we're registered with the council. We have got a food hygiene binder, and we're subject to the inspection that's required. My head chefs, there's one person every time that's in charge. they do food hygiene level 2. And then sous chefs, they have to read some stuff, but I don't insist they do food hygiene level 2 unless I offer that. We've had a couple of volunteers who've been Duke of Edinburgh, and actually it's been really nice for them to sort of engage with that. We have a GDPR policy that is covered because there's a separate phone number, and we're just sort of storing first names and a phone number and dietary requirements. It feels minimal. And then we have a safeguarding policy that we do through the Methodist our church's safeguarding policy. Because we have a few under 18 volunteers, they have to come with an adult. Because I couldn't ask all my volunteers to do the full safeguarding training. But our hosts are safeguarding trained and DBS checked. So they're the people who are doing the cups of tea and the chatting. So yeah, there is a bit of a burden, and I have to balance all that. But actually, a lot of it, once it's established, the maintenance is a lot simpler. And once you know up front, it's sort of okay. As long as, yeah, it's sort of okay. But the food hygiene is a bit more of a step. But of course, actually, when we registered as food hygiene, we run a cafe weekly as well, and have volunteers baking. But actually, the legislation is that volunteer bakers should be registering with the council anyway. So actually, when you look into it, it's not much more than we should have been doing anyway. And I think it forced us to make sure we were all doing everything well. So.
Thank you. Yeah. Yes, thank you. Very, very brief. I'm also conscious of time. Just to say, with regards to Reuniform and that question, I mean, GDPR is a major issue for us. We keep a single source of information with a single person that's very, very secure. One of the things with regards to safeguarding was actually to do with the going out and delivering things. We considered the safety of that. I mean, I wasn't personally bothered, but you know, like a lot of things, we want to go out, but you've got to take into account safety and data protection and everything. But there's lots more to say for that for Reuniform as well. The gentleman here, please. Just one more.
I wondered if you detected any issue for your clients or sort of potential stigma in using your services, and if so, how you addressed it.
How's that for Reuniform? Stigma. So that was about if there's any stigma from the client's perspective and how you address the stigma of using the service.
We find, certainly with Reuniform, that's quite acute. And one of the good things that we've found with Reuniform is, I mean, in many ways, we hope one day that Reuniform won't be required anymore. But at the same time, certainly when you've got parents, but particularly school children, don't want to be seen to be taking free well, I do that, but it's absolutely free. They don't want to be seen to be taking free uniform. So sometimes if the schools work well with us, they can be running their own little Reuniform after school hours so people can come in. There is a stigma attached to it, unfortunately. But there are lots of parents and children alike who are really not bothered by it, which is wonderful to see. But we aim to be sensitive where we perceive there a stigma attached.
Yeah, and I would say with Tea2Go, I think there's enough people coming that aren't worried by it, and we are supporting the same families all the way through. And there's a question, you know, that's that issue of we're not pulling people out of poverty, and are we just perpetuating the problem? Because there's evidence to show that food banks actually just encourage poverty because there's no transition. And the fact that we've been supporting some families for 3 years is a worry, but there is that community, and they do want to come and they do want to stay. And we frequently have people rock up early because they want the cup of tea and the chat. And we've had people who just come for the tea and the chat, actually, and don't take the food because they needed a reason to get out of the house. And I think loneliness and mental health is such a big problem. And we've had social prescribers prescribing us volunteers, but also saying to people, just go and have a cup of tea there. They're nice and they'll look after you, you know. So being able to be that space for people is really important.
Thank you very much, Fran and Steve. Couldn't remember your name then for a minute.
I can't remember my name often, so I look down at my badge and I can see.
It's an early sign of something. We've barely touched the surface, haven't we, of some of the issues around these sort of projects. I'm sure sitting out there are many of you are involved in similar things or wondering about the needs in your local communities and how you might begin it. I'm sure Steve and Fran will be happy if you bump into them to talk to them more. But sadly, our time has gone. That's if you want to get some, it says lunch on here, but I think it's dinner. There's a dinner break or a lunch break, whichever it is. Now we go to that, and workshops, you've got all sorts of workshops in the first session from 2 o'clock onwards, and all sorts to look at. So, oh, okay.
We were advised to recommend that you go to the Vanberg Cafe for food, since you're at this end of the campus. And for that, you need to go out of here and then just turn left and follow the signs for food. And hopefully it won't be as crowded as the other ones where everybody else will be.
Thanks for that, Sue, yes, because obviously it's getting crowded the other end. So, well, off we go. And thanks again. Let's offer our appreciation. Thank you.